Guys, welcome to Mastermind content. My name is Richard Oldale, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to identify the Trickster Archetype in both its constructive and destructive guises. I will explain a little about the functionality of this archetypal energy, and if you stay to the end I will show you how you can find out how well developed this part of your personality is. Shall we crack on? Yeah, I think we should crack on. So in some archetypal models you will see the trickster identified as the jester, or sometimes maybe the joker, although not the Joker in Batman, because the trickster, the jester, is this fun-loving part of your personality that loves to have a good laugh. And when your sense of humour is well developed, then the trickster gives you the infectious energy that people love to be around. It's playful, enthusiastic, friendly, imaginative, resourceful, and a great communicator. The trickster is also highly intelligent and innovative because it sees the world from a different perspective. And it's this capacity that helps you be able to see through the illusion of the matrix. It's your bullshit detector. However, when this energy is underdeveloped, it can be a menace. Now, you play cruel tricks on people that you may find funny, and you poke fun at people that you may find funny, but it's actually in ways that are hurtful to other people. Unfortunately, because I was detached from my emotion and my trickster was underdeveloped, or my ego was underdeveloped, my trickster was quite insensitive at times. And when I think back about some of the things I said to people, even though I thought I was being playful and pulling their leg at the time, I recognise now that it was probably quite hurtful for me to say these things. So if anybody's watching why I did offend way back when, I'm terribly sorry. Whilst a trickster loves making people laugh, this archetype can develop because it needs to disguise your insecurity. Now that was certainly the case for me, and I wasn't very knowledgeable about the world when I was younger, and because I didn't like pop music or the TV or the radio, I didn't really have a great deal to talk about with my friends when they were chit-chatting about things that they'd watched on TV or their music preferences. So I was often found wanting in conversation and didn't contribute much to what was happening. But every now and again I would chip in with a funny quip or a joke, and this would make people laugh. And once I started recognising that I was funny, it gave me some smidgen of self-confidence. However, the trickster can become a menace in the way that you utilise your humour, because you may become the class clown or the prankster. And because of your insecurities, you're basically seeking attention from other people, and you get your kicks by making other people feel stupid and embarrassed. Now you probably know these type of people, right? So why are they like this? Well, in the world of archetypal psychology, it's thought that the trickster comes online when parents are inconsistent and unpredictable in the way that they treat the child, how much attention they pay to the child. Now this can be confusing for a young infant, because children crave attention, and at some point they realise that the only way they can get attention from their parents is to do something funny, or they develop a attention-seeking attitude, such as fooling around or attempting to cajole the parent into some sort of fun game. So you can see then why teenagers who feel insecure need to seek attention to gain recognition by playing pranks on people and being the class clown. Now, if this attitude and insecurity is then carried into adulthood, the pranks could actually get much more risky. Now, deep down, the trickster really just wants to be loved, and because they are insecure, they need to be able to develop healthy relationships whereby they do feel loved. But this is difficult to do when you become a prankster. Whilst we're circling around the topic of humour, it seems like a good time to mention that one of the trickster's functions is to deflate the ego, or you might want to say dissolve the ego. Now, this terminology comes from a Jungian concept called ego inflation, which is basically describing when the conscious personality, the I, becomes detached from the self and overly invested in external distractions, or they're acting beyond the limits of their personality. One of the Jungians that I feel most inspired by is Edward Edinger, who describes inflation as power motivation of all kinds is symptomatic of inflation. Lust and all operations of the pure pleasure principle are likewise inflation. Any desire that considers its own fulfillment the central value transcends the reality limits of the ego, and hence is assuming attributes of the transpersonal powers. In fact, taking on oneself too much of anything is indicative of inflation because it transcends proper human limits. So the role of the trickster or the jester is to deflate these ideas that we have that we can do something that we're not actually capable of, or when we just behave in ways that are disproportionate to the situation. And this was actually the role of court jesters in medieval times. Their job was partly to playfully mock the king in attempt for him to maintain his humility. Now, as you can imagine, a powerful king could easily become egotistical. They could become inflated. They would inflate their own importance. Thus, you would also find tricksters known as the jester and the fool archetypes because court jesters were considered simpletons that were there to be laughed at. Well, the trickster enables you to laugh at yourself. So the role of the trickster is not just to deflate an overinflated ego, which it might do by planning a grandiose idea in your head that in your arrogance and narcissism you believe. What it actually does is creates an illusion which sets you up for failure. The illusion being that you believe you can do something that you actually can't. So then when you fail, you feel like a fool, you feel embarrassed, which is the opposite to humility, is humiliation. So this begs the question, do you want to learn the easy way or do you want to learn the hard way? Because life is a school. And when you don't learn the easy way, the challenges that you encounter become increasingly more difficult. And once you enter the school of hard knocks, the trickster appears and eventually makes you feel like a fool. So another way to identify the destructive qualities of the trickster is if you don't recognize boundaries of yourself, as we spoke about with the ego inflation, but also of others. Because the shadow trickster hates to be limited by rules and regulations. So people with this dominant archetype don't respect authority or law and order. For example, vandals, delinquents and yobs are possessed by the shadow nature of the trickster archetype. Likewise, the trickster personality in a position of power does not earn the respect they crave for because they are prepared to backstab their colleagues to get to the top. These types of people are therefore manipulative, devious, and even con artists. They basically have delusions of grandeur. Now, as I mentioned before, the underlying wound of the trickster personality is insecurity. But when you can't use humour to disguise your discomfort and gain respect through being playful, fun and likeable, you chase power and seek validation by becoming a figure of authority. And whilst undeveloped tricksters may feel as though they're expressing themselves fairly and have a right to do as they see fit, they're actually blinded by the overinflated ego I mentioned earlier. But most people see straight through that illusion in you, even though you don't see it yourself. And therefore, They don't take you seriously. Now, in their book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette write, "If we don't feel our real specialness, we will come under the power of the trickster, the know-it-all, and deflate others' sense of their specialness, even when such deflation is not called for. The know-it-all trickster has no heroes because to have heroes is to admire others. We can only admire others if we have a sense of our own worthiness and a developing sense of security about our creative energies." Now, people who are possessed by the trickster should be careful to guard against the tendency for irresponsible behaviour and acts of debauchery. You must learn to take life more seriously and hold yourself accountable when you're in a position of responsibility. However, when the trickster personality is developed, it becomes part of your personality that creates congenial environments which are enjoyable and constructive. Not only are you fun to be around, you have an infectious enthusiasm for things that you are passionate about, and your vivid imagination can bring forth a spark of inspiration in others, especially when you're a good communicator who is able to clearly describe your vision so that others can see it. Now, from a personal experience, your imagination can work in one of three ways. You either inspire people, you provoke resistance, or they just think you're a weirdo. A learning curve for the trickster then is to be able to communicate their ideas on the level of the other person, and also, depending on the idea, you probably need enough information that that you can use to create a vivid enough picture. Some people just don't have the imagination to grasp what you're saying. It has to be spelled out for them bit by bit. And on that bombshell, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to have to leave you to consider how well developed your trickster archetype is. But if you really want to know, then why not head over to the Mastermind Content website and take the personality assessment survey simply by going to the home page, go through to the assessment and then press start. Now, what you will get is a series of questions, the first part being how dominant each of the archetypes are in your psyche. Basically, how often do you use them? The second part of the assessment shows you how well developed each of the archetypes are. Ideally, you want to be scoring around, well, probably from 60 to at least 75, because that means that you have developed a particular archetype to a mature and well-adjusted state of conscious awareness. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm Richard Oldale and this is Mastermind Content. Don't forget to look out for part 2 of the Trickster to learn how to develop this archetype. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.